I truly believe that life leaves clues for us and brings us an intelligence within this journey of ascension that we're all on. It's a divine intelligence, if you want to use that word. And I believe that these clues are happening for us and not necessarily to us. Because I do truly believe that we are here to co-create with life itself, with the universal forces that are here. But so often we kind of miss these signals that are coming to us that can be really helpful in certain ways. I would love to understand a little bit about your perspective, Sophia, on what this divine intelligence is. How is it speaking to each one of us? And specifically, how does it speak to you? How are you able to uncover what life is presenting you to possibly pick them out and go down a path that could lead to something beautiful, something miraculous, something that uncovers or maybe perhaps opens another door that we might not have thought was something that was going to be on our path here?
Well, I was very fortunate to kind of click in at a young age, at the age of 19, when something happened that was bigger than me. Okay. And so this divine intelligence communicates with us in very clever ways. And for me, I mean, through dreams, meeting a stranger that just happens to say exactly what is needed at that moment. Um, and then also by putting coincidences in our path. Okay. And so I've had these miracles happen to me since the age of 19. And the last thing I wanted to do was write a book. I mean, it was very unsavory. The idea of sequestering myself somewhere and writing a book was just not in my thing. But a medium told me about 16 years ago that I was going to write a book. And I argued with her and I said, sorry, but that's not in the cards. And she was world famous. And I thought, I don't care, you're not always right, in my head. And in 2011, I was reconnecting with a friend from childhood. And I told her my latest miracle. And she said what people have been telling me all my life. Oh, those things only happen to you. And something clicked. And I thought, when I got off the phone and I thought, it's the number of events that were really pretty astounding. And what I did is I sat down. I mean, it really piqued my interest, and I listed all the coincidences and the miracles that happened to me. Well, first it was the miracles, and then I realized that preempting the miracle was a coincidence. Okay. And by coincidence, I mean getting exactly what you needed just the right time. Okay. And when I figured out that what it took is to take action on the coincidence. And then that's how the miracle came about. Because had I just let it go, it would have just been a coincidence. And and people have asked me, like, how do you know when to take action? Well, it's big when it's bigger than you take action. And that's when I decided to write the book.
That's beautiful. And I love the word that you're using, coincidences. Dan and I, we talk about this on the show. We truly believe there are no coincidences. Like kind of like I started, like I do believe life is presenting us with opportunities. And if we're tapped into that, then it's like, oh, yes. We also use the word synchronicities a lot. It's
Yes.
synchronistic. I'll be thinking of something, or like you said, beautifully, something happens on a podcast or a show says something, or yes, you meet a neighbor, or they recommend a book, and it's like, all right, yes, you're all on that same wavelength. It's like almost like a frequency.
Exactly. It's exactly that. And now there's coincidence. I would like to make this differentiation
Yes, please,
between
yeah.
coincidence and a meaningful coincidence or synchronicity. Okay. So for example, the other day, I was writing, and just as I typed the word trajectory, somebody on the television said the word trajectory. And I'm like, well, I mean, I use the word, but it's not at the tip of my tongue. And wow, that's such a coincidence. But so what? You know? And so then there's the meaningful coincidence that is bigger than you. And that is, and this communication, see, it goes both ways. Divine intelligence, God, whatever you want to call it, communicates with us by presenting opportunities, okay? And we, in turn, ask, and then we say thank you. We say thank you because in my first book, The Divine Language of Coincidence, it's a memoir, so basically it's chronological. But there are 2 chapters there. One is titled Please, which is prayer, and then the other one is thank you, which is gratitude. And I say thank you all day long, and it's like the more you say it, the more you get. And so my whole life has been guided in this way.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's like a reminder, just saying thank you as a reminder for all the things that you have to be grateful for.
It's really the highest form of prayer, and in those chapters, the miracles are more thematic than chronological. So that's and also another reason why I had to write the book. So again, there were no pros and cons, like should I, it was like, wait a second, I am an ordinary person, and these extraordinary events did indeed happen to me. So since I'm not special, I'm not a guru or a saint or anything, I want your listeners to know that these are accessible by everyone, but you have to open your mind.
Yes, absolutely. I was going to say it really does start with awareness, and maybe that's something that we can dive into because, gosh, up until maybe about 5 years ago when I really started this in-depth look at who I truly am, spirituality, wellness as a whole, becoming more holistic and understanding that everything is interconnected and how this divine intelligence, God, universal source, the creator, whatever you'd like to call it, is connected, and I am a part of this, not separate. It began shifting my mindset that yes, I'm not separate, and kind of that phrase, life isn't happening to me, it's happening for me. And I've just kind of missed all of these clues, or perhaps I didn't even miss them. It just, I was oblivious. I didn't have the awareness.
Well, also, excuse me, when people can start musing, things that happened in their life, like how they met their spouse, or like, had I not gone there, and what made me go there, and there he was, and what happened, and all that. So, because see, unfortunately, we were given free will, and so for example, I did not want to get married. I did not want children. And the last thing was to write a book, okay? Well, I was successfully single until I was 45. Okay, and then I met Frank and we got married. And then I resisted. I resisted. And then in 2011, one of my mentors, Father Stephen, who's the closest thing to Jesus on earth, he's an Albanian Orthodox priest, but he also opened up all the covenant houses here in the area, Philadelphia, New York, Atlantic City, and it's a shelter for homeless teens. And so he and I would have coffee every other month for 8 years until he retired and moved to Florida. And so he was coming over for coffee, and he said, you know that girl that I told you that landed in the shelter in Atlantic City from Turkey? And I said, yeah. And he goes, well, I'm going to take her to get her cap and gown because she was going to graduate from Atlantic City High School. And, if I bring her over for coffee. And I said, sure. And he brings this beautiful girl. She was turning 19 that week. And, you start, like, what brought you to this country? And she answers. And then I ask another question and she answers. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. How did that happen? And Father Stephen, who knew exactly what he was doing, goes, oh, I have an errand to run. I'll see you back here in an hour and 15 minutes. So off he goes. And what I heard, I mean, amazing abuse and abandonment that no one human should ever go through. So anyway, that was it for me. I was in love, and Frank comes home, and I said, Frank, that pamphlet you gave me about taking in a Chinese student? And he goes, yeah. And I said, well, I have a better idea. So anyway, we ended up adopting her.
Wow.
And Mother's Day just became my new favorite holiday, and so that happened. And then I wrote the book. I wrote 2 books. And I'm so sublimely happy and thinking, what if I had not done that? In fact, in the first book, The Divine Language of Coincidence, okay, here you go. I can actually give you a couple of examples of
Please.
meaningful coincidences. Okay. So 2 lighthearted that I love to tell because they both netted me exactly what I needed for our wedding. Okay. Okay. So, and then you can tell me which one you think is weirder. So, okay, I call my friend Anne. And a man answers, it's not her husband. And I said, is Anne there? And this guy goes, Sophia, is that you? It's me, Jerry. You called me. Look, I have to run. I have to go to this meeting. I just got out of the shower and I'm going to be late. Can I call you later? And I recognize who this is. It's an acquaintance that I know socially, and because of his accent. And first of all, I can't believe that he, just by saying is Anne there, he recognizes my voice. So I said to him, oh, you have to call me back. Promise me you'll call me back. And he goes, I promise. I go, what's your telephone number? I said, this is an accident. And he tells me his phone number, and I had misdialed the last digit. Okay. So this guy at the time, because we decided to get married on 4th of July, and the wedding date was 4th of October. So we had 3 months. All the venues were taken, music, like, I thought, I don't care. I have a friend who's an event planner. She can do something nice, So this guy, in a short period of time, maybe he had this hotel for 5 years. There's this beautiful old world hotel here in Philadelphia, the Barclay. It has now been converted into condos. So as a result of him calling me back, he gave us the ballroom for free and threw in 2 nights in the presidential suite. But then he said that I had to have him and his girlfriend come to the wedding.
That's a really good deal. I used to work in the hotel business, and I know how expensive ballrooms are to rent out.
I mean, gorgeous old world ballroom,
Wow.
Okay, that's one. The second one was, I get a call from this woman who says, you know, is this Sophia Demas? I said, yes. She says, well, I found your driver's license in Rittenhouse Square. I said, oh, okay. She goes, how can I bring it to you? And I said, well, where do you live? Turns out she only lived 2 blocks away, which makes sense that she would
Sure.
find it. So it was an Oregon driver's license. So she puts a little note. Oh, she goes, I said, just put it through my slot. Just put it through the mail slot. So, and she has this very nice little note about how she loves Oregon. She and her boyfriend would go to Oregon a lot. Okay, end of story, but not. So 2 months later, I get a call from the same woman. And she says, you're going to find this a little strange, but I just found your ATM card. Okay, now
Yeah.
I would go to this ATM machine that would spit out the card right away.
Mm.
But this time I went to one that it keeps the card. You do the transaction and then it says, would you like another transaction? So I leave and the next person can just wipe out my whole
Yeah, you're right.
account. Well, it was her. It was her. So she calls me up and I'm like, oh my God, you know, unbelievable to me. Okay, because I don't lose cards. Okay. So she says, should I just put it through your mail slot? I said, no, no, we've got to meet. Okay. So I had her come to my studio and I had this handmade nice bar of soap from Oregon. Thank her.
Hmm.
Turns out she's a concert violinist. And as a result of that meeting, she got her friend who's a classical guitarist, and they played my favorite concierto de Aranjuez, as I walked down the aisle.
I have chills.
Yeah, that's
That one,
amazing
it's that
story.
one. That one's the amazing. That the first one was real good, but that one is for that specific woman to find your license and then ATM card. I mean, thank you for sharing that. I love hearing stories like this because, oh gosh, yes.
Okay, now, but here's here's the takeaway that I want your audience to get. Okay, how easy would it have been to say to her, or to Jerry, you know, Jerry, you know, I'll call you later, okay? And I could have gone, oh, you don't have to. This was a wrong number, Jerry. I mean, it was wild, but you don't have to call me. I have nothing to tell you. And how easy would it have been for me to say to this woman, yeah, just put it in the slot.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I noticed as
Okay.
you're telling the story, you made a point of it.
It was bigger than me. It was bigger than me. And so by saying, no, we have to meet, that was my taking action, and I was able to co-create the
Mhm.
miracle. Okay. Now, I don't put more like one miracle is bigger than the other or lesser than the other, but some are more important. So, for example, my husband, Frank, I found out pretty early in our relationship that he was a rager. He had major anger issues, like stemming from childhood, whatever. And like he was this mild-mannered man. And then I would do like some innocent gesture or something, and his filter would take it as I'm demeaning him or something. And then he would explode.
Sure.
And the reason I stayed with him is because I saw how much he wanted the relationship. You know, like one time when I threatened to leave, he found this great therapist, but the behavior continued. And then he found a group, a men's group full of these ragers, and you know, and he became the poster boy. But he continued. And then finally I had enough and I moved out because I could. Okay. And it got to I moved in with a friend who was going through a divorce. And it got to the point where I never wanted to see this jerk ever again. Okay.
Wow.
I had the divorce attorney's card in my hand. Okay. And are you familiar with A Course in Miracles?
Oh, yes,
Yes.
yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, that plays huge in
Mhm.
my story. Okay. Huge. And I resisted that book for 2 years or something. Just
I think us
It's a
too.
big book. It's intimidating to
It
look
is.
at it.
it looked too much like the Bible, you
It
know,
does,
Yes.
like
yeah.
with the numbers, you know. So, but I do tell the story how I was forced to read this book. Okay, I mean, it's an unbelievable story. Okay, so I had that book with, you know, but see, I wouldn't open it during this time because I didn't want to read something I didn't want to read.
Sure.
Because the rule is, if I open it to something, I have to read it. Okay. But now I made up my mind. I never want to see this. I woke up, I felt so fabulous for this new chapter in my life. And I am going to open the book up so that it could tell me what to do now, what's going to happen to me. I opened this book to this chapter titled The Healed Relationship. And I'm like, no, oh no, but I have to read the book. Okay. Basically, what I got out of it was that we're all one and we're all one with God.
Mhm.
And if your brother comes to you with his hand outstretched to connect with you and you say no to your brother, you are saying no to God. And I'm like, oh, God. Okay. So I have nothing to lose. If he calls, I have nothing to lose. Okay. Because I really can't believe these things really happened to me. Because 3 things happened that brought us back together. So he calls the next day.
I believe it.
And I went, okay, yeah, okay, Tuesday, we'll meet on Tuesday. And so he comes over. I was angry, but I had to do this, right? So I said to him, I put him across from me on the dining room table. And I said, I want you to know that the only reason that you are sitting across from me is because of a miracle. And he says, well, I have a miracle for you too. I mean, like all of a sudden he speaks Chinese or something. I'm like, the lingo.
Yeah.
And I go, okay, you first. And he tells me that he took our fountain apart in our garden. And it is made up of a basin and this tall, heavy cement column. So the water goes out, hugs the column into the basin. And he said, the column fell on my hand as he's taking his wedding ring off. And I'm looking at his hand that should be hamburger, and it's just a bruise with a little tiny scratch. And the wedding ring had squashed because it took the weight of the column. Like,
Oh my God. Wow.
okay, but see, I needed something that dramatic
Right,
to disarm me.
Mhm.
That dramatic, okay?
Mhm.
And I was disarmed. I agreed to go to dinner with him, and we kind of got back together.
Mhm.
And these 3 things all happened in 2 months, okay? Okay, the third thing, okay, now I was going to go to Maui to be the matron of honor for my best friend for the 3rd time. Okay, and I wanted to invite him, but he had sabotaged so many romantic getaways. I was very tentative. And then I just thought, no, I'm going to trust. I'm going to trust. I can always, go away, Okay, so, okay. So we're going to the airport. And I thought, oh, last minute, I need reading material. I mean, Philadelphia to Hawaii is.
Oh yeah, that's a big one.
So I run upstairs and I had this shelf where I had like 7 books that I had partly read and just grabbed one. And because all of them I intended to read at some point. And I go and I look at, I'm in the cab and I look at it, I'm like, oh no, I wanted the novel. This one was called Endless Energy, and it was written by Dr. Deborah Green, who does these energy clearings, okay? And so anyway, I'm on the plane. That's all I have to read. So I started, and I'm getting into this thing. Okay, she's a kinesiologist. She does these clearings, these energy clearings that just sounded amazing, amazing. And I'm reading, and then I'm going to see the citations at the back of the book. And yes, prayer works. Dr. Larry Dossey says so. And I'm going back and forth to the back of the book, and I turn the page, and there is Deborah Green, who lives in Maui, Hawaii. Not only that, but the address was on Kihei Road where our condo was.
Oh my God.
Okay, now what do?
Yeah.
The minute we lay over, I contact her. I've got her information right in front of me. And I told her the times that we would be available. And she said, yes, you could do it. I said, I have to ask my husband. I go, Frank, look, Maui, Kihei Road. And he goes, well, I guess it's meant to be. So we go and we have these energy clearings, okay? I don't know what it was. I don't know if it's the fact that I trusted him or that we went through these clearings. That was in 2009. He has not had one anger episode since. I'm married to my dream life companion.
Wow.
So somebody up there, some divine intelligence, didn't want this to happen. And it could have been my mother. I mean, who knows? Because I've had these communications, because, there were so many events to cram into one book that I, plucked all the ones that had to do with death. And that's my second book.
Yeah.
So I would say that the string of three meaningful coincidences are more important. The string is more important than the ones for the wedding. So
Yeah, that's it.
Oh
The
my
stories
God.
are all so incredible.
Yes, and thank you for sharing that as context, as visualizations, as understanding. I mean, everybody is in some sort of relationship, whether that be romantic or platonic with like a best friend or a familial member. They're here to guide us, and thank you so much for sharing that. I think that they're incredible. I'm so glad to hear that you're now with this partner that's almost new, and you've got this kind of amazing trajectory for your path. Amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, let's shift into the.
Well, I wanted to bring one thing up real quick before, because I really want to shift into communicating with our lost loved ones. But there's something you said, a couple things you said. You said a lot that's really jumped out. But you said earlier that it wasn't about making a pros and cons list, and then a little later you brought up the word trust. And it really jumps out as you tell these stories that so much of it is about kind of trust and surrendering to life and just following these hints that are being shown to you in the path. And I think that so often our like kind of small ego self wants to make that pros and cons list and kind of nitpick in it. It would have been so easy for you to be on that plane and be like, well, it would be great, but there's also this list of, we have other things to do, and the vacation isn't about this, and it's going to cost money, and all the different reasons you could have come up with not doing it. But it seems like instead you're just choosing to surrender to what's obvious and what's right there.
Okay, the key here, then I haven't used the word yet, is intuition. Our intuition.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, that is something that's like a muscle that you work on. You work on. And the more that it brings about exactly what you need, the more you trust the muscle, and the better it guides you. It guides you. And then that just ups the trust. And then, so now I'm at a point, okay, I'll tell you, I've kind of I've kind of dissected this spiritual journey in three levels. Okay, I see it in three levels. A lot of people, I think, live in the first level, which is living by wishful thinking. Okay, so the coincidence happens, and you go, "Oh my God, what a coincidence!" And then you keep wishing for whatever it is you want. Just keep wishing. Next thing happens, slaps you in the face. Oh, oh wow, that's what a coincidence. Keep on wishing. And then it's like, well, these things don't happen to me, you know? So the next level is from the position of hope. So now you recognize the coincidence, you take action and hope that something happens. But the third level, and it is absolutely wonderful once you get there, is of total faith. And when you have faith, you don't worry about anything. You don't worry if there's obstacles in your way. How many times had I said, "God, why are you doing this to me?" You know, how many Mr. Wonderfuls it didn't work out with, and then they either went crazy or went to jail or died or something. You know, there was, and then I ended up with Mr. Wonderful. You know.
Yeah.
So it's kind of getting there by trusting.
Yeah, absolutely. It's beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is beautiful. Thank you.
Well, let's shift gears a little bit. I know we're not shifting too much, but let's dive into your second book and really how this came about, where you talk about how our consciousness, perhaps as we elevated or tap more into it, then we're able to communicate with deceased loved ones. How did this come about? How did that kind of show up in your life? How did this start?
You know what? I'll tell you why I think, and so I'm going to, the two examples I'm going to give you are not in my book because it happened afterwards. Because otherwise people won't go buy my book because you know, I'm telling all my stories.
Yeah.
So I think it's again being open. Okay. Someone asked me why so many things happened, you know, like communications from my father, my mother, friends, pretty amazing. So the second book, Consciousness Beyond Death, 7 out of the 10 chapters were my experiences. And then 3 were close friends' experiences, which I can't choose which one I think is the strangest. You know, it's just unbelievable. Okay. So I am going to credit my mother because when I was little, my mother was extremely religious. You know, prayed every morning, every night, and derived her spirituality through that her religion. So it wasn't just performance or showing up at church or whatever. And she never pushed it on me. But so Greek is my first language. And so any object can be turned into the diminutive. So it's the little chair or the little table or the,
Sure.
you know, and so she would talk to me about the little Jesus and the little Virgin Mary. And, you know, I was a toddler, okay? And she would tell me this, that, you know, if you ever want anything, you just ask little baby Jesus, you know, because little Jesus loves children and you can ask him anything, okay? And if you're scared, like at night, you know, when you get scared sometimes, just ask the little Virgin Mary for protection. So I think what happened there is that from a very young age, I just accepted that, you know, it's perfectly normal to communicate with unseen beings.
Yeah.
I think that must have, because I have found myself throughout my life just asking for things, you know, and you don't always get the miracle, let me tell you, you know. And again, obstacles. How many times has that happened? So I had told you that these scientists are now interested in, well, first they got interested in the first book. I knew that scientists were studying consciousness.
Yes.
I had no idea that they studied coincidence and synchronicity. No idea.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, and so this one a scientist, I don't know if you've heard, his name is Dr. Eben Alexander. He's a neurosurgeon and who had a near-death experience.
Yeah, I have.
Came back and wrote Proof of Heaven.
Oh, so, yes. Okay, yes.
Okay, so he reads my book, loves my book. And when he found out I was, writing the second one, and the full title of the second one is Consciousness Beyond Death, True Stories of Signs, Messages, and Timing. And that is the key, the timing. So I sent him the manuscript, and he writes back and says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I can't endorse your book because there's not sufficient discussion of consciousness." Now that was BS, but it was a code. Okay, the code was, oh, I'm a neurosurgeon. I can almost die from meningitis, go to heaven, come back and write a book because NDEs have been studied for decades. But I can't touch this topic with a 10-foot pole. Well, lucky for me, just before publication last year, a new field of science cropped up, ADC, after death communication. So now they're interested in this book. So and this outfit, people should look this up. It's this group of esteemed scientists that invited me to be part of their group, and then to help plan and participate in the Synchronicity Summit. The group is called the Scientific and Medical Network, out of the UK. Well, the summit, I was the only non-scientist, non-academic. Okay, so it was so well received that they just published a book of essays, and it's called The Playful Universe. Just came out, Synchronicity and the Nature of Consciousness, and I'm chapter 17. My essay.
That's absolutely incredible.
So the thing about the after-death communication is that it takes many forms, and I can give you some examples if you'd like.
Yeah, give us an example. Yeah.
Okay, so again, it can happen through dreams. It can happen through music. It can happen through, my best friend's story is just unbelievable, that she received a poem from her father 2 months after he died. Okay, like unbelievable. Okay, so these are two good examples because they're different. Okay, so the one is this unsolicited, spontaneous communication. Okay, so I'm at my eye surgeon's office, and I told her about my second book, and she goes, "Well, I have a story for you." I go, "Okay, go ahead." She says, "Well, I had to go to this gala with my husband, and I did not want to go. I was dead tired. It was a full day of surgeries. The last thing I want to do was go to this gala, but we had to go to the gala. So afterwards, I had to take the babysitter home because it's my husband's rule never to be alone with a female babysitter." And she goes, "So I was driving back And all of a sudden, I heard my grandmother scream, "Wake up!" And she goes, I came to, and I was heading into a brick wall. And she was able to put the brakes on. And so when somebody said they came to, that means she was asleep at the wheel. She was not conscious.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Holy crap.
Okay, so her grandmother saved her life. Yes.
Oh my gosh. Wow. That's incredible.
And this happens a lot. I mean,
yeah,
I have to tell you, there's many people who I'll tell the story and then they'll say, oh, I have something to tell you too,
Yeah.
So what was the second one that happened? This was recent. Okay. So about 4 months ago, I lost one of my oldest and dearest friends, one of the most magnificent women I have ever known. I mean, we had a 45-year friendship, and she was this global person. Okay, she was East Indian, raised in South Africa. Her undergraduate degree was University of Edinburgh, a PhD from University of Pennsylvania here, where I met her. And she knew all these ambassadors. And one time she visited me and she took me to New York to visit her friend Gloria Steinem, I mean, she just knew all these people. And 2 days, it was sudden, it was a heart attack. But 2 days before, which I will be forever, ever grateful, we had this wonderful FaceTime visit where she told me I was her sister and that she loved me. And that is just a gift, okay? So, I don't know, a month or so ago, I'm walking down the street thinking of her. And then just thinking of her. And then I found myself saying in my head, Pushpa said, if there's ever anyone who would give me a sign, it's you. I said, maybe it's too soon, but when you're ready, I said, I want you to give me a sign, okay? I swear to you, the very next morning, I received a Facebook friend request from her.
From your friend that passed?
Yes. Now, it's happened before that, somebody will send a friend request that's already my friend, like they're trying to hack into my account or something.
Sure. Yes. Yeah. Gotcha.
But from over 500 friends, the next day, timing, I get a friend request from Pushpa.
Oh my God.
I just can't tell you what the elation,
Yeah.
So this one I asked for.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I wasn't gonna go here, but I have a crazy story that's like this. If you want to hear it, I'll try.
Oh, I would love to. See?
Yeah, because I do have a couple questions.
This is just your life. Everybody just tells you their crazy stories.
Feel pretty easy. I've actually never told it before, to be honest. I've never spoken about it. I've never spoken about on the podcast. I told some people like within my family, but so last year in 2023, in June of 2023, my cousin passed away. And kind of like as you just described, she was, other than Dan, she was the closest person in my life. I'm an only child and she's an only child. So we were each other's sisters. And it was very sudden, although it was 2 months, it was extremely sudden that her passing. After she passed, she wasn't religious whatsoever. So she wanted to have basically like a celebration of life. And her husband and her 2 boys, they lived in Colorado. Dan and I last year were in Massachusetts, where both of our families are. So preemptively for a few months, him and I drove across the country to live with her husband and 2 children, just to be there for support, getting ready for the celebration of life. And then obviously you can imagine having 2 young boys that were 10 and 11, like he just needed help. I felt the calling to be there. So when we were there over, basically a 2-month period, within the first couple of weeks that we were there, as you can imagine, she had just passed maybe 3 or 4 months prior. He has a lot of paperwork to go through. I mean, everything, financials and documents. And one day he had meetings with attorneys and stuff, and he came home, and I just asked him, hey, like, how did everything go? And he's like, great, but I need to get the boys' birth certificates. I need to show proof of birth certificates for them. And I'm not sure where Nikki left them. Nikki is my cousin who passed. And I was like, okay, like, didn't really think anything of it. So he's looking around for like a day, can't find them. Second day, third day, I can't find them. I have no idea where they'd be. Like, we're like, all right, like, I don't know how we can help you. Like, so I think maybe a week passed and kind of forgot about it. He seemed to have forgotten about it. Now he was at work, and then Dan and I were in the house because we work virtually from home, and the boys were at school. Now, because we're so close, they've lived in this house for nearly 10 years. So, and I had visited probably every single year. Like, we're very familiar with their house. We've been there 100 times. This wasn't uncommon for us to be there. I know their house basically inside and out for how long we've stayed with them. The guest bedroom, they have like a redone basement with a bathroom. The guest bedroom was downstairs with a huge living room. So that's where Dan and I were staying. And I was coming up the stairs. The stairs lead to like a hallway with their laundry, big living room with their TV. It's like their family room that's connected to the kitchen. So Dan's there working on the computer, like doing work, and I'm just like walking around. And as I do, I know where everything is. And then something catches my eye in the corner. There's this tiny little bookshelf, mainly pictures. There's 2 books at the bottom. One is Michelle Obama's autobiography, and the other book is a book on Buddhism. It was bright yellow with red writing. Not super into autobiographies, but as spiritual journey as I'm interested in Buddhism. So I picked the book up, I look at it, and I said to Dan, I was like, have you ever like heard of this book? And he's like, no. I start flipping through the pages. What falls out of the last 2 pages? The boys' 2 birth certificates.
Okay. Okay. Now see, okay. That is truly amazing. Okay. I'm not going to tell the story of the poem that my best friend's father, Mr. Dutton. Okay, so I had 9 chapters finished in the book. Okay, so I had my 7 and 2 of close friends. And I wanted a third story. I didn't like the 7 and 2. I wanted the 7 and 3. Okay. So Mary calls me up and she says, guess what I found? I said, what? She goes, I found the poem that my father wrote to me. And I went, what poem? I mean, she goes, well, how could I not tell you about the poem? And I said, you had a poem from your father and I would forget about it? I said, absolutely not. Well, she had lost the poem for 10 years.
Wow.
And her son called and asked for his birth certificate. And she goes into the file where the birth certificate was, and there is the folded piece of paper that was given to her. Wow. The story is incredible. And I got it just before sending it to the publisher because Mr. Dutton wanted me to write about that story. Yeah. That is incredible.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's a synchronicity right there, the birth certificate.
I mean, because it sounds like Nikki was somebody that you just expected to grow really, really old with. Okay.
Yeah.
And so, she just came through.
Yes. And that's one of many. I mean, that's the most profound, but yes, you see them and it's beautiful. Like, we've used the word like lost, she's passed, but like that energy, she's there. She's
there.
Yes.
When there's no doubt in my mind that when we die, we simply shed our bodies and we are as conscious as we are right now. And And any fear of death has gone out the window for me, because this means that when it's my turn, I get to be clever. I get to be
Yeah.
clever and
You've got all this practice,
communicate.
and all this information.
Yeah.
Yes. And also, interestingly enough, this second book that Dr. Alexander said does not have sufficient discussion of consciousness. The foreword was written by Dr. Deborah Green, who did the energy clearing for us, and it's all about consciousness.
Yes, of course.
And so how did that work out that she ended up writing the foreword? So it is without a doubt that it is just this continuation, So it gives a lot of hope, especially for people who have lost people, and then this book, The Playful Universe, the essays are very interesting, because many of the essays are accounts of these scientists saying, well, I was a materialistic scientist, and then these synchronicities changed my whole worldview, and it's and then there's many people who still cling on to, oh yeah, when I go, it's poof, I'm done, and what they believe is that the brain produces consciousness, where no, the brain clicks in to consciousness.
Yes.
And it's just and it's interesting where, despite all this anecdotal proof, these people still refuse to believe. In my favorite story, one of these scientists told me, actually it's the executive director of the Scientific and Medical Network. So he told me the story of what is his name? The scientist who discovered that the planets go around the Earth, the sun. I mean, the planets go around the sun. He's Italian. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. Okay, well, it'll come like
yes, we'll get it.
Tonight or whatever. So, so the scientist had a friend who was an atheist and wouldn't have any of this. That, to him, the Earth was flat, period, and nothing was going to change his mind. And this scientist, that I can't remember the name of this uber important person. Oh my God.
We'll try to look it up.
So he said, look through my telescope. And the guy would not look through the telescope. And it's so crystal clear, because it's kind of like, if he looked through the telescope and saw the truth, his whole worldview would have to change. And
I was just going to say that, yeah. People don't want the paradigm shift or the
yes.
the challenge.
Giordano Bruno?
No.
No.
I'm just going to list off.
I'm listing Italian.
Oh my God. Oh, I mean, anyway, I just can't.
That's all right. I completely get. I feel like this story itself lends itself to like the understanding of it. But yes,
I'm sure there's a lot of people listening that
know
exactly what I'm talking about.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it's probably so frustrating for them.
I really want to thank you for your platform.
Oh my gosh, yeah, you read my mind. I was going to say, as you're wrapping up, like, this has been such a privilege and an honor to learn from you and to hear from you. It's inspiring. It's exciting because, kind of like wrapping up, like I was saying, I really do think that at whatever scale it is, there is a paradigm shift. Like, to have science be really interested in your two books that really aren't scientific is so beautiful. There's a blending within this science and spiritual community. And I hope that we're moving towards this new age of co-creation, collaboration, understanding how each can maybe play off one another to help us evolve and grow as a species. And all around the whole planet.
Yes, yes.
Absolutely. Before we go, we always like to ask, do you feel that there's anything on your heart that you didn't share that you feel is important that our audience know? If not, that's okay. I just like to leave the space open for you if you feel there's anything.
No, I think we covered the points, and if anyone is interested in hearing more of the stories, then,
The books,
there
yeah.
are the books. So
Absolutely.
yeah. And also, okay, well, and for those who, okay, so in on my website, okay, on my website, this is for people who are interested in mysticism. Okay. So there is a page which I call they're my mentors, okay, and there are eight people who I have met personally,
Yeah.
that I consider to be my mentors. And if you're going to read just one blurb, it's Abbess Ameliani. Okay, she's a nun, and you can't miss her. Okay, she runs a monastery in Maryland, but it's a firsthand account of bilocation that could be very interesting. Yeah. So
okay, I'm gonna go check that out with me.
so that's my story.
Yes, and thank you for sharing that. I feel like I said, your energy sharing these stories, I mean, it seems like you're just lit up by them, and it's an energetic resonance that is reaching us and then hopefully our audience to be more understanding of these miracles that are around the corners when we can see them.
Galileo.
Galileo. I said it to him. I said Galileo, but I didn't see that. Boom, mic drop, the perfect ending to the podcast.
Yes, thank you so much.
Again for joining us today.